Tonight, direct hit.
At the president's direction, U.S. military forces conducted airstrikes.
The U.S. targets Iran-backed militias in Syria and Iraq. Plus, the desperate race against time. Search and rescue teams work around the clock on day 5 after the collapse of that condo in Florida. And
this is our one big shot.
The fallout after the president walks back an unforced error on the big bipartisan infrastructure deal. All this and more on Faith Nation. And welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Heather Sells. Tonight, Washington is buzzing after President Biden ordered overnight airstrikes in the Middle East. The White House says they come in response to attacks against U.S. interests in Iraq. CBN News White House correspondent Eric Phillips has our report. Eric.
Well, Heather, like you said, officials say the president ordered the strikes because of those in that region who have targeted U.S. interests. It's yet to be seen whether those for whom the strikes were intended to send that message, whether they actually received it, and if it will cause them to reverse course. These are Defense Department images of the strikes that happened Sunday night into Monday morning. The targets, Iranian-backed militia groups that have attacked U.S. interests in Iraq. Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking Monday about the strikes.
We have been very clear, the president has been very clear throughout that we will act to protect U.S. personnel.
We continue to believe that and have never held back from noting that Iran is a bad actor in the region. And they have taken part in and supported and participated in extremely problematic behavior in our view.
3 operational and weapons storage facilities were hit, 2 in Syria, 1 in Iraq. This comes as Democrats in Congress are working to repeal the 2-decade-old authorization for use of military force, which gives the president latitude to order such strikes. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki maintains the strikes were legal and in response to bad behavior.
Article 2, the self-defense, the defense of the United States and our interests is our domestic justification for these strikes. It was necessary, appropriate, and deliberate action. These strikes designed to limit the risk of escalation. Negotiations to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon is in our national interest.
Democrats are already demanding classified briefings on the strikes, some arguing that years of fighting in the region between Americans and Iranian proxies is starting to look more like a low-scale war. The latest from the White House tonight. Back to you, Heather.
Eric, thanks very much. And joining us now is Michael O'Hanlon, Senior Fellow and Director of Research and Foreign Policy at the Brookings Institution. Michael, thanks for coming on. Tell us about this border area between Iraq and Syria where these airstrikes were carried out. What is the strategic importance of this region?
Greetings. Well, part of the importance of the targets in Syria is that we don't have to ask the Iraqi government's permission. So if you're looking for a way to retaliate against Iran, and part of the point is to send a message, as opposed to the military effects, striking inside of Syria is advantageous. As you reported, however, we also struck apparently on the Iraqi side of the border. That's more complicated in terms of what the Iraqi parliament may have to say about it and our long-term troop presence. In terms of the actual technical military importance of this location, Iran's been trying to build what's essentially termed a bridge to the Mediterranean, an overland bridge, if you will, or highway, for quite a while. And they've had opportunities at different moments in Iraq's evolution, as well as the Syrian civil war. And so in that sense, there is a bit of a rat line, if you will, of supplies going to the extremist militias. And while I don't know that one can say any particular warehouse or facility is crucial, these are certainly going to be chosen as targets because they are among the more important that we know about. Unfortunately, Iran's been able to send a lot of weaponry through to Hezbollah, to other groups inside of Syria, and to groups attacking American forces in Iraq. And so I don't know how much of a military difference this will make. It's probably in the realm of, 5, 10, 20% of the problem, but still more than zero.
A strategic area for sure. What has been the concern in the U.S. over the drone strikes targeting U.S. military bases in Iraq? And do you think that these airstrikes will deter further drone strikes or just lead to more blowback?
Well, first of all, the drone part is really just the latest variation. You know, anybody who was in Iraq working with the U.S. government in the last 20 years, or since 2003 anyhow, knows that Iran was often sending weaponry to its friendly militias to attack the Green Zone in Baghdad or other American sites. Back then, it was mostly artillery. But you're right, it's become more frequently drones in modern times. Not always. Still, old-fashioned missiles and artillery shells are a part of the mix. But the drone element is a new one, requires perhaps some new kinds of tactics, maybe jamming of the communications links to some of those drones and their operators at some distance, or their sensor systems. In any event, it's just one more piece. As you say, it's a longstanding concern, not just with the drones, but other weaponry. And it's led, for example, to the Trump administration's decision to kill Qasem Soleimani in early 2020, partly in retaliation. And so we've also moved U.S. forces away from some of the more heavily populated areas where Shia militias backed by Iran could more easily access. I think we still have a pretty good chance of protecting our forces quite well, but it's an ongoing area of vigilance, and it's uncertain what will happen next.
So really, it sounds like what the president did, it may or may not deter. Well, it just remains to be seen. Or any clues so far?
I'd be surprised to see this as a turning point. You know, again, American presidents before Biden, including Trump and Obama and Bush, have taken various measures against Iranian-backed militias, various measures against, those who would threaten our forces in Iraq. It's an ongoing challenge. This signals that President Biden will not be afraid to do the same thing. So it's important in that sense in establishing the parameters of his presidency. Otherwise, it's relatively unremarkable in this 18-year-old saga.
All right. And we just have about 30 seconds, but these airstrikes do come as the U.S. is trying to rev up the nuclear deal with Iran. How do you see this potentially impacting that?
I think it clarifies and reinforces the point the Biden administration's made all along, which is that we will separate these problems. And just because we're trying to find a workable compromise on the nuclear front doesn't mean that we will back off in our defense of other interests, just as tragically Iran has not backed off in its regional adventurism. So I wish that Iran would be willing to lump all these issues together and negotiate a comprehensive settlement of some kind, but it's not in the offing.
Very, very fascinating. Michael Hanlon with the Brookings Institution, thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
Well, it is now day 5 of the search for survivors in the rubble of a collapsed Florida condo building, and rescue workers believe that they could still find those clinging to life. Mark Martin joins us now with more. Mark.
Heather, there are now 10 people confirmed dead, but more than 150 are missing in the collapse, which happened in Surfside, Florida, northeast of Miami. About 400 search and rescue workers are on the scene.
We are exploring all possible avenues, and we're going to continue and work ceaselessly to exhaust every possible option in our search.
We have been able to tunnel through the building. But, again, this is a frantic search to continue to see that hope, that miracle, to see who we can bring out of this building alive.
Is he in the hospital? Is he in the rubble? We just want to know already.
Valerie Mancharova's brother and his wife lived on the 7th floor. 12 stories of a section of the Champlain Towers South pancaked to the ground, but the way the building collapsed leaves hope that pockets of air could form in the rubble big enough to sustain life. There are new questions now about the structural stability. The building collapsed just days before a deadline for condo workers to begin, condo owners that is, to begin making payments toward more than $9 million in repairs. A report recommended the repairs nearly 3 years before, warning of, quote, major structural damage. The concern over Champlain Towers North is also growing. Its construction and age are similar to the condo that collapsed. Surfside Mayor Charles Burkett says they want residents to evacuate that building, but they're not requiring it.
I don't know if I'd be comfortable staying in that building until I knew for sure that they had done a comprehensive top-to-bottom study on what's going on with the systems in that building.
In their search for survivors in the rubble of Champlain Towers South, crews actually dug a 125-foot-long trench, which is 20 feet across and 40 feet deep. The mayor of Miami-Dade County says 6 to 8 teams are actively combing through the rubble at any given time, and teams from Mexico and Israel have even joined the search. We need to pray for a miracle there, Heather. Back to you.
Yeah, incredible situation. Thank you, Mark. Coming up, President Biden's unforced error after announcing an infrastructure deal. It could throw a wrench in those plans.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Tonight, the Supreme Court is giving a pass on transgender bathroom rights, a win for a Virginia student who sued his school for discrimination. 7 years ago, Gloucester High School barred 15-year-old Gavin Grimm from using the boys' bathroom, arguing that Grimm remained an anatomical female. Grimm's lawyers argued that federal laws protect such students. Today, the High Court refused to hear the high school's appeal to reinstate its transgender bathroom ban. That decision does not indicate agreement with previous court rulings. President Biden is priding himself on leading the most pro-LGBTQ administration in U.S. history. On Friday, he announced the appointment of Jessica Stern, a new LGBTQ special envoy at the State Department. Biden also condemned the passage of state laws that prevent kids who identify as trans from playing girls' sports or receiving puberty blockers.
These are some of the ugliest, most un-American laws I've seen, and I've been here a while. Many of them target transgender children, seeking to prevent them from receiving the appropriate medical care, for using the bathroom in high school.
In other Washington news, a $1.2 trillion infrastructure deal is back on track after President Biden reversed course on linking it to another, much more expensive bill. Last week, the president suggested he would only sign the bipartisan bill if Congress agreed to pass a $6 trillion measure Democrats have dubbed human infrastructure. On Sunday, the president abandoned that stance, indicating he will support the first bill focused on improving roads, bridges, and broadband on its own merits. While his agreement angered some Democrats, Republicans applauded the move.
It was a surprise, to say the least, that those two got linked. And I'm glad they've now been delinked, and it's very clear that we can move forward with a bipartisan bill that's broadly popular, not just among members of Congress, but the American people.
We really need to understand that this is our one big shot, not just in terms of family, child care, Medicare, but on climate change.
The White House aims to pass that larger bill with only Democrat support through a maneuver known as reconciliation. Well, joining us now is CBN News chief political analyst David Brody. David, the president said he misspoke when he threatened to veto the bipartisan deal he championed earlier last week. How big of an unforced error was this? Enough to throw this deal off the rails?
It was big, and now there's a lot of question marks whether or not this deal is even going to happen. But let's be clear, Heather. The president, and believe me, Joe Biden misspeaks all the time, and he has plenty of flubs. I'm not convinced at all that this was him misspeaking at all. What he did is he said the quiet part out loud. That's the problem here. In other words, this was the Democrats' plan all along, to link the two, to bring the two bills, once again, the hard infrastructure deal, and then which the Republicans pretty much have signed on to, at least 10 of them or so, and then this reconciliation deal, which is all the social welfare programs that the Democrats are calling infrastructure. I mean, that's been the plan all along. Biden just happened to say it out loud. And so, look, let's just cut through all of the clutter here. There is a hard infrastructure deal that the Democrats want to get. The Republicans will go along with that, and that can get passed separately. That's what the Democrats should have done all along. Then later on, that's when the Democrats are going to pass through the social welfare infrastructure plan, 2 whatever trillion. It's the Bernie Sanders liberal utopia dungeon plan. And that's what they're going to do. So this has been it all along. I'm not quite sure, other than the fact that now they might not get the first part. That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, well, I was intrigued, David, to see a White House memo that the Associated Press obtained showing Biden plans to highlight to voters this week the expected economic benefits. And he's talking about $973 billion, the largest investment in transportation in a century that would lead to millions of jobs. So I'm thinking, how much of a political incentive is there for both sides here?
Well, look, I think from a hard infrastructure standpoint, there's incentive for both sides. The Democrats can say, look, we worked across the aisle with Republicans, so that's good. And look, hard infrastructure is always a good thing for both parties because Republicans and Democrats can say, look, we're coming home to the district with better roads and bridges and highways. And most people, if you look at polls, are okay with the hard infrastructure. It's the social infrastructure where things get definitely messy and a lot more controversial.
All right. And David, before we wrap up here, I want to ask you, former President Trump is heading to the border on Wednesday. This follows, of course, the vice president's trip. What can we expect from former President Trump at the border?
It's going to be the same old script from Trump. And you know what? That's exactly what he wants to do. He wants to continue to hammer the fact that his policies work, like remain in Mexico or stay in Mexico. But beyond that, he's just going to say that Kamala didn't do anything. She didn't even go to the border, technically, right? 3 miles away or so. And Joe Biden hasn't even been to the border. So it's an opportunity for Trump to say, I told you so. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, fascinating that immigration continues to be such a big issue. David, thanks so much.
You bet.
When we come back, the movement to provide sanctuary cities for the unborn and the court challenges that could lie ahead.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
A new wave of sanctuary cities is spreading across America, and these are not places for refuge for immigrants. These cities are declaring themselves sanctuaries for the unborn and banning abortion. But can this movement survive court challenges, and how might it influence efforts to overturn Roe v. Wade?
Lebanon, Ohio is one of the latest communities to declare itself a sanctuary city for the unborn. There is no abortion clinic here, but city leaders say that's not the point.
Sometimes being an elected official means you step out.
Longtime Mayor Amy Brewer says Lebanon wants to make it clear abortion providers are not welcome.
Without being proactive, something like this could come into our community and we would be unable to stop it.
Of course, not everyone here supports the ordinance. Those who oppose it say it's simply beyond the scope of this small town and that it will harm women who are seeking an abortion.
Abortion bans do not stop abortions. They only stop safe abortions. If you pass this, the number of back alley abortions will go up.
In late May, the city council heard from both sides of the issue for 4 hours, then voted unanimously to pass the ordinance. City leaders say their intent is neither to harm women nor prevent them from getting an abortion outside of Lebanon.
It is specifically written to say the mother that is in this situation needs mercy. There is no penalty for them whatsoever.
Those individuals within our community who share a different perspective than I do still have those same opportunities, those same resources.
That includes a local pregnancy center for women in crisis. City leaders credit a college student, 19-year-old Josh Beckman, with suggesting the ordinance.
God just put it in my mind, sanctuary city for the unborn.
They also credit the president, whose strong abortion support emboldened their pro-life commitment.
President Biden has said that he wants abortion access available in every single zip code of this country. We have our own zip code, and we have a people that we want to be able to protect.
Mike Gonadakis leads Ohio Right to Life and says his phone started ringing off the hook after Lebanon passed its ban.
You're going to start seeing cities, townships, and villages across the state of Ohio passing these. We believe counties, county commissioners will pass these as well.
Outside Ohio, movement leaders say communities in half a dozen states are considering bans as well. The big hope for these pro-life leaders comes in the fall at the Supreme Court. Justices will hear the Dobbs case, which directly challenges Roe v. Wade and Casey v. Planned Parenthood. It contests a Mississippi law forbidding abortions after 15 weeks. Gonadakis says a slew of local abortion bans this summer could send a strong signal to the court.
We can send letters and we can send emails, but if we have our local governments telling them by passing ordinances and laws that we want to end this, the court's going to listen.
Regent University law professor Brad Jacob isn't so sure, saying it's debatable just how important such cultural cues are in the court's decision-making.
I'm not sure that a popular opinion poll is going to sway very many of the justices.
And the reality is Americans are split on abortion. A June Gallup poll found 52% think it should be illegal or legal in only a few circumstances. 45% support it in all or most. Jacob and other scholars say the local abortion bans could pose legal pitfalls, depending on how they're crafted.
The city ordinance might be flat unconstitutional. They could get hauled into federal court.
Another challenge, state politics.
A city or a county is a creature of state law. And ultimately, if the state doesn't like what the city is doing, the state can find a way to stop it.
So far, the bans in these sanctuary cities remain. Most recently, a federal judge in Texas dismissed a Planned Parenthood lawsuit trying to overturn a voter-approved measure in Lubbock. Here in Ohio, the Lebanon mayor is prepared for such a challenge. Her yes vote, she says, has already led to personal threats.
We took a bold move. We took a brave move. And you can do one of two things. You can be an elected official and ride the fence and do nothing. Or you can do what you feel is best and take a stand on something.
For Brewer and other backers of these bans, it's important to take that stand, at least within their own city limits.
And city leaders in Edinburgh, Texas, are some of the latest to show support for an abortion ban. That's also the city that former President Trump will visit on Wednesday. Still ahead, gymnastics icon Simone Biles has booked a return trip to the Olympics. See who is joining her in Tokyo next.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
The U.S. Olympic women's gymnastics team came together this last weekend. 7-time national champion Simone Biles has become the first to win the U.S. Olympic gymnastics trials twice, and she's leading a powerhouse of gymnasts to Tokyo. Sunisa Lee finished right behind Biles in second place and became the first Haman American on an Olympic gymnastics team. 4 of the highest-ranked gymnasts in the all-around standings complete the squad, which will head to Japan in a month to take home the gold. And that's going to do it for Faith Nation. Thank you so much for joining us.